My name is Emma Johnson. I'm 32 years old and work as an elementary school teacher in Denver. For most of my life, I believed family was everything. Blood ties were sacred, unbreakable bonds that transcended all other relationships. Growing up in a middle-class neighborhood with my parents, Linda and Robert Johnson, and my older brother, Michael, I was taught that family always comes first. But sometimes the people who are supposed to love you the most are the ones who hurt you beyond repair. I always tried to be the perfect daughter. While Michael got away with anything and everything, I worked twice as hard for half the recognition. My parents made it clear that Michael was destined for greatness, while I was just there, an afterthought. The dependable one who would pick up the pieces when golden boy Michael inevitably shattered something with his carelessness. Standing in the rain outside the Grand Windsor Hotel in Denver, blood dripping down my face, my shattered phone scattered across the pavement, I finally understood the truth. They never saw me as their daughter or sister. I was their scapegoat, their emotional punching bag, the family failure they could point to when they needed to feel better about themselves. But they had no idea what I was capable of. They thought I was weak, pathetic, a drama queen who couldn't handle the real world. What they didn't know was that I had a plan, and what I did next would change everything. The first time I realized something was wrong with our family dynamic was when I was 8 years old. Michael, then 11, had broken Mom's favorite crystal vase while playing ball in the house, something we were explicitly forbidden to do. When Mom came home and saw the shattered pieces, Michael pointed at me without hesitation. "Emma did it," he said, his voice steady, his eyes cold. "I told her not to play with her doll near it." I stood there, mouth open in shock, unable to form words as Mom's face transformed from confusion to anger. "Emma, how could you? You know better." But I didn't. I tried to explain, but Mom wasn't listening. "Go to your room. No dessert for a week." As I trudged up the stairs, tears streaming down my face, I caught Michael's smirk. That was the first time I understood he knew exactly what he was doing, and he enjoyed it. This pattern continued throughout our childhood. Michael broke things, hurt people, lied, and cheated, and somehow, I always took the blame. By the time I reached high school, I had developed an almost pathological need to please others, to be perfect, because maybe then my parents would finally see me. They never did. After college, I became an elementary school teacher. I loved working with children, helping them grow and learn. My classroom became my sanctuary, the one place where I felt valued and respected. My principal, Lisa Park, often praised my dedication and creativity. My students' parents thanked me for making such a difference in their children's lives. For 8 hours a day, I could pretend I was someone who mattered. Then I'd go home to my modest apartment, check my phone, and see missed calls from my mother asking for favors, or texts from Michael needing money for his latest investment opportunity. March 15th, 2021, marked the day when things escalated from emotional to physical abuse. I was at my parents' house for Sunday dinner, a tradition I maintained despite the anxiety it caused me. Michael had recently lost his job, again, and was temporarily staying with our parents. During dinner, Michael announced he had a new business idea and needed investors. "It's a sure thing," he said, mouth full of Mom's pot roast. "I just need some startup capital." Dad nodded approvingly. "That's my boy, always thinking ahead." Michael glanced at me. "Emma, you must have some savings. Being a teacher is steady work." I nearly choked on my water. "I have some savings, but it's for my future. Maybe a house someday." Michael scoffed. "A house? On a teacher's salary? Be realistic." "I've been saving for years," I said quietly. Mom patted Michael's hand. "Don't worry, sweetie. We'll figure something out. Your father and I might be able to help." "But you just paid off your mortgage," I protested. "And you're talking about retiring soon." Michael's face darkened. "Not everyone wants to live a small, pathetic life like you, Emma." "I'm not saying that," I explained. "I just think—" "You think you know everything because you went to college," Michael sneered. "While some of us had to work in the real world." "You dropped out," I reminded him. That was your choice. Michael slammed his fist on the table, making the dishes rattle. You think you're better than me? No, That's enough, Dad interrupted. Emma, stop antagonizing your brother. I sat there, stunned. I hadn't antagonized anyone. I'd simply stated facts. But in this house, facts didn't matter, only feelings. And the only feelings that mattered were Michael's. After dinner, I helped Mom clear the table while Dad and Michael watched TV in the living room. When I headed upstairs to use the bathroom, Michael was waiting for me at the top of the stairs. You always have to make me look bad, don't you? He hissed. I wasn't trying to. He cut me off by shoving me hard. I lost my balance, tumbling backward down the stairs. I grabbed desperately for the railing but missed. My body hit each step with a painful thud until I landed in a crumpled heap at the bottom. Mom rushed out from the kitchen. Emma, what happened? I looked up at Michael, who stood at the top of the stairs with a panicked expression that quickly morphed into concern. She tripped, he said, coming down the stairs. I tried to catch her, but I couldn't reach her in time. I stared at him in disbelief. He pushed me, I said, wincing as I tried to stand. Mom helped me up, examining the bruises already forming on my arms. Don't be ridiculous. Why would Michael push you? Because I wouldn't give him money, I said, my voice shaking. Michael's face hardened. See? This is what I'm talking about. Always the victim. Dad appeared from the living room. What's all the commotion? Emma fell down the stairs and now she's blaming Michael, Mom explained. Dad shook his head. Emma, you've always been clumsy. Don't try to blame your brother for your mistakes. I stared at them, these people who were supposed to love and protect me, as they dismissed what had just happened. Michael had physically assaulted me, and they were acting like I was making it up. I need to go, I said, grabbing my purse despite the pain shooting through my shoulder. Don't be dramatic, Mom said. You're fine. I wasn't fine. I had a sprained wrist, multiple bruises, and a fractured trust that would never fully heal. But I left that night without another word, driving home in silence, the weight of their betrayal crushing my chest. I avoided family gatherings for a few months after that, claiming work obligations. Mom called occasionally, not to check if I was okay, but to guilt me about missing Sunday dinners. Michael never apologized. No one acknowledged what had happened. By December, the holidays were approaching, and the pressure to attend family functions increased. Mom insisted I come to their Christmas party on December 10th, 2022. Everyone will be there, she said. Aunt Judith is asking about you. She thinks you're avoiding the family. I've been busy with work, I said, which wasn't entirely untrue. I'd thrown myself into teaching, volunteering for extra committees, staying late to grade papers, anything to avoid going home. It's Christmas. Emma, family comes first. There it was. The mantra that had been drilled into me since childhood. Family comes first. Even when that family hurts you, even when they don't believe you, even when they choose someone else over you, time and again. Fine, I said, resigned. I'll be there. The party was in full swing when I arrived. Cousins, aunts, uncles, and family friends milled about, drinking eggnog and exchanging stories. Michael was the center of attention, as usual, regaling everyone with tales of his latest business venture, a cryptocurrency investment platform that was going to change everything. I hung back, nursing a glass of wine, exchanging pleasantries when necessary, but mostly observing. Michael caught my eye across the room and smirked. He knew I was uncomfortable. He enjoyed it. Later, as I was helping Mom in the kitchen, Michael cornered me by the refrigerator. I need to talk to you, he said, his breath reeking of alcohol. What about? I asked warily. I'm in a bit of financial trouble, he admitted. Those investors I mentioned? They're getting impatient. That's not my problem, I said, trying to move past him. He blocked my path. I need $15,000, just to tide me over until my next venture takes off. I laughed in disbelief. 15,000? Are you kidding me? I don't have that kind of money. Yes, you do, he insisted. You're single, no kids, You've been working for years. Where does all your money go? I have bills, Michael, rent, student loans, car payments. You're so selfish, he spat. After everything I've done for you. I stared at him incredulously. What have you ever done for me except blame me for your mistakes and push me downstairs? His face contorted with rage. Keep your voice down, he hissed, gripping my arm painfully. Let go of me, I said, trying to pull away. Is everything okay in here? Mom asked, entering the kitchen. Michael immediately released me and stepped back, his expression transforming into one of hurt and confusion. Emma's being difficult again, he said. Mom sighed. Emma, it's Christmas. Can't you put aside your issues for one night? My issues? I repeated, my voice rising. He's asking me for $15,000, money I don't have and wouldn't give him if I did. He's your brother, Mom said, as if that explained everything. If he needs help, we help him. He pushed me down the stairs in March, I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. And none of you believed me. Michael's face darkened. Not this again. Emma, you tripped, Mom said firmly. Stop trying to blame your brother for your clumsiness. I wasn't clumsy. He pushed me because I wouldn't give him money then, either. You need to calm down, Michael said, stepping toward me. Stay away from me, I warned, backing up. Or what? He taunted, moving closer. What happened next is still a blur in my memory. Michael lunged at me. I raised my hands to protect myself. There was a struggle. His elbow connected with my nose. I felt a sickening crunch. Warm blood gushed down my face. The pain was immediate and overwhelming. I stumbled backward, clutching my face, blood seeping through my fingers. Look what you made me do, Michael shouted. Through watery eyes, I saw Mom standing frozen in the doorway, her hand over her mouth. Dad appeared behind her, taking in the scene with a frown. She attacked me, Michael said quickly. I was just defending myself. That's not true, I gasped, fumbling for my phone in my pocket. I'm calling 911. Mom's expression changed from shock to determination. She crossed the kitchen in 3 quick strides and snatched the phone from my hand. What are you doing? I asked, blood dripping onto the pristine tile floor. You are not calling the police on your brother, she said firmly, holding my phone out of reach. He broke my nose. It was an accident, Michael insisted. She came at me first. That's not what happened, I cried, reaching for my phone. Mom backed away, clutching my phone to her chest. Enough, Emma. Always making a scene, always creating drama. I turned to Dad, who stood in the doorway, watching. Dad, please, help me. He shook his head slowly. Drama queen again, he muttered, turning back to the living room where the Christmas party continued, oblivious to the violence in the kitchen. I stood there, blood streaming down my face, betrayed once again by the people who were supposed to love me most. Mom handed me a kitchen towel for my nose and instructed me to clean myself up in the bathroom. Michael disappeared, probably to rejoin the party and spin some tale about my absence. I did as I was told, mechanically washing blood from my face, wincing at the throbbing pain. My nose was definitely broken. I looked at my reflection in the bathroom mirror. Pale face, red-rimmed eyes, bruising already starting to form. When I emerged from the bathroom, Mom was waiting with my coat and purse. I think it's best if you go home, she said, not meeting my eyes. You're upset, and you're upsetting Michael. I'm upsetting Michael? I repeated incredulously. He broke my nose. It was an accident, she insisted. And if you'd just given him the money he needed, none of this would have happened. I stared at her. This woman who had given birth to me, raised me, supposedly loved me, as she blamed me for my own assault. My phone, I said, holding out my hand. She hesitated, then reached into her pocket and pulled it out. But instead of handing it to me, she deliberately dropped it on the tile floor and stomped on it with her heel. The screen shattered, pieces skittering across the floor. Oops, she said coldly. Another accident. I stood frozen, staring at the broken pieces of my phone. a perfect metaphor for what remained of our relationship. "Get out," Mom said quietly, "and don't come back until you're ready to apologize to your brother." I left without another word, walking out into the cold December night with a broken nose, no phone, and the final shreds of my familial delusions in tatters. Sitting in my car outside my parents' house, I realized with startling clarity that nothing would ever change. Michael would always be the golden child. I would always be the scapegoat. My parents would always enable his behavior and blame me for the consequences. It was time to accept reality and protect myself. No one else was going to do it. The next day, after a painful visit to the emergency room where I told the doctor I'd walked into a door, I went to a phone store and bought a new phone with a new number. I didn't give it to my family. I started therapy with Dr. Rachel Turner, who helped me understand the dynamics of my family and recognize the patterns of abuse I'd endured for years. "What you're describing," Dr. Turner said during one session, "sounds like a classic scapegoat golden child dynamic. It's a form of family dysfunction where one child can do no wrong and another child can do no right." "But why me?" I asked. "What did I do to deserve this?" "You didn't do anything," she assured me. "This isn't about you or your worth. It's about your parents and their issues. They created this dynamic, not you." Over the following months, I limited contact with my family. I answered Mom's occasional emails briefly and professionally. I declined invitations to family gatherings. I focused on healing, both my physical injuries and my emotional wounds. And I started making plans. For years, I'd been quietly building a side business. What had started as a hobby, creating handcrafted home goods that I sold at local markets, had grown into a legitimate enterprise. My Cozy Creations brand had developed a loyal following, and my online store was thriving. I'd kept it separate from my teaching career and hidden from my family, knowing they would either dismiss it as insignificant or try to exploit it for their own gain. By June 2023, Cozy Creations was generating more income than my teaching job. I had investments, savings, and a business that was growing steadily. But to my family, I was still just Emma the teacher, Emma the failure, Emma the drama queen. On June 18th, 2023, I received an email from my mother informing me that there would be a family gathering at the Rosewood Country Club. My grandmother had passed away 3 months earlier, and her will was finally being settled. According to Mom, my presence was required as a beneficiary. Grandma Johnson had always been different from the rest of the family. She saw through Michael's charm and recognized my efforts. During her final years, we'd become closer, having Sunday tea together when she was still able to leave her nursing home. She told me once that she saw herself in me, the quiet strength, the perseverance in the face of unjust treatment. "Don't let them break you, Emma," she'd said, her papery hand covering mine. "You're stronger than all of them combined." When she died, I mourned deeply. She was perhaps the only blood relative who had truly seen and valued me. I decided to attend the will reading, not for my parents or Michael, but for Grandma. I would honor her memory by being present, regardless of how uncomfortable it made me. The Rosewood Country Club was elegant and imposing, much like my grandmother had been in her prime. I arrived early, dressed in a simple but elegant black dress, my hair pulled back in a neat bun. I wanted to appear composed and professional, giving my family no ammunition to criticize or belittle me. My parents arrived next, Dad looking uncomfortable in his suit, Mom scrutinizing the room as if searching for flaws. Michael arrived last, as usual, making an entrance in an expensive suit that looked new. His wife Ashley was with him, dripping in jewelry that I suspected they couldn't afford. We gathered in a private room where Grandma's lawyer, Mrs. Thompson, waited with a folder of documents. Mrs. Thompson had been Grandma's friend as well as her legal counsel, and she greeted each of us with varying degrees of warmth. Cordial to my parents, cool to Michael and Ashley, and genuinely warm to me. "Now that everyone is here," Mrs. Thompson began, "we can proceed with the reading of Martha Johnson's last will and testament." The will was straightforward. Grandma had left specific items to various family members: her antique clock to Dad, her pearl necklace to Mom, her collection of first edition books to me, knowing my love of literature, and her vintage cufflinks to Michael. Then came the financial distributions. To my son Robert Johnson and his wife Linda, I leave the sum of $50,000. Mrs. Thompson read. Mom and Dad exchanged satisfied glances. To my grandson Michael Johnson, I leave the sum of $10,000. Michael's face darkened. He'd clearly expected more. To my granddaughter Emma Johnson, who has shown kindness and dedication throughout her life, I leave the sum of $25,000 to be used toward her future home or business endeavors. I felt a rush of emotion. Grandma had remembered our conversations about my dreams of homeownership and business expansion. Even in death, she was supporting me. Additionally, Mrs. Thompson continued, I leave my vacation property in Aspen to be shared equally among my son Robert and my grandchildren, Michael and Emma. The room fell silent. The Aspen property was worth at least $1 million. This concludes the formal will reading, Mrs. Thompson said, closing the folder. I'll need signatures from each of you acknowledging receipt of your inheritances. As Mrs. Thompson distributed the paperwork, Michael leaned over to whisper something to Dad. They both glanced at me, then nodded. After the formalities were completed and Mrs. Thompson had left, Michael approached me with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Emma, we need to talk about the Aspen property, he said. What about it? I asked cautiously. Dad and I think it would be best if we sold it and split the proceeds, Michael explained. It's not practical for us to share ownership. I'm open to discussing it, I said, but I'd like some time to think about it. Grandma loved that place. There's nothing to think about, Dad interjected. We've already found a buyer. I stared at him. You what? The Richardsons next door have been interested for years, Mom explained, joining the conversation. They've made an excellent offer. But the will was just read today, I protested. How could you already have a buyer? We've been planning this for a while, Dad admitted. It makes the most sense financially. And speaking of finances, Michael added smoothly, we've decided on a different distribution of the proceeds. Different how? I asked, a sinking feeling in my stomach. Well, considering Dad's the one who's been maintaining the property all these years, and I've been helping with the taxes, Michael explained. We think a 40-40-20 split is fair. 40% to Dad, 40% to you, and 20% to me? I clarified, my voice tight. Exactly, Michael nodded. It's only fair. That's not what Grandma wanted, I said firmly. The will clearly stated equal shares. Don't be difficult, Emma, Mom sighed. This is what's best for everyone. And while we're at it, Michael continued, I think we should discuss your $25,000. My head snapped up. What about it? Well, you know I've been having some cash flow issues with my business, he said casually. And you don't really need that money. You have your teaching job. Are you suggesting I give you my inheritance? I asked incredulously. Not all of it, Michael clarified. Just $20,000 or so. You can keep $5,000 for yourself. I looked around at their faces. Michael's entitled expectation, Mom's impatient frustration, Dad's detached indifference. They genuinely believed they had the right to take what was mine. No, I said quietly. What? Michael asked, as if he hadn't heard correctly. I said no. The money is mine. Grandma left it to me specifically. Michael's face hardened. Don't be selfish. Emma, family helps family. Family doesn't steal from family, I countered. And that's what you're trying to do. It's not stealing if you agree to it, Dad pointed out. But I don't agree, I insisted. And I won't. Michael stepped closer, lowering his voice. Look, I need that money. Those investors I told you about, they're not just going to wait forever. That sounds like a personal problem, I said, standing my ground. Michael's face contorted with rage. He grabbed my arm, his fingers digging painfully into my flesh. You ungrateful little... Let go of me, I said loudly, drawing the attention of the country club staff nearby. Michael released me, but his eyes were cold. "You've always been a problem, Emma, always thinking you're better than everyone else." "I don't think I'm better," I said. "I just think I deserve basic respect and the inheritance my grandmother left me." "Your grandmother was getting senile toward the end," Mom interjected. "She didn't understand what she was doing." The casual cruelty of that statement took my breath away. "That's a horrible thing to say." "It's the truth," Dad shrugged. "She wasn't thinking clearly. Mrs. Thompson seemed to think she was of sound mind when she made her will," I pointed out. "Thompson was always too close to your grandmother." Mom dismissed. "She would have said anything." I looked at them, really looked at them, and saw strangers. These people weren't family. They were predators, circling, waiting for weakness. "I'm leaving," I announced, gathering my purse. "And I'm not giving up my inheritance or agreeing to an unequal division of the Aspen property." "Emma, be reasonable," Dad began. "I am being reasonable," I insisted. "I'm honoring Grandma's wishes, something the rest of you should try." I turned to leave, but Michael blocked my path. "You're not going anywhere until we settle this." "Move," I said firmly. "Or what?" he challenged, stepping closer. I saw his hand twitch, saw the same rage in his eyes that had preceded him breaking my nose 6 months earlier. But this time, we were in public. This time, there were witnesses. "If you touch me," I said clearly, "I will scream, and then I will press charges for assault, and I will tell everyone exactly what happened last Christmas." Michael hesitated, glancing around at the country club staff watching us with concern. "This isn't over," he warned, stepping aside. "Yes, it is," I replied, walking past him toward the exit. Outside, the summer evening was warm and humid. I reached for my phone to call a rideshare, my hands shaking with adrenaline. Suddenly, the door behind me burst open. Michael stormed out, followed by my parents. "You think you can threaten me?" Michael demanded, grabbing my arm and spinning me around. My phone fell from my hand onto the pavement. Michael saw it and deliberately stepped on it, grinding it under his heel until the screen shattered, just as Mom had done at Christmas. "Oops," he sneered, echoing Mom's words. Another accident. A light summer rain had begun to fall, drops mingling with the tears of rage and frustration that streamed down my face. "Michael, that's enough," Dad said, not out of concern for me, but because we were in public. "Drama queen again," Dad muttered, taking Michael's arm and leading him back inside. Mom paused, looking at me standing there in the rain, my phone in pieces at my feet. "When you're ready to be reasonable, you can come home," she said, as if offering a great kindness, but not before. Then she too turned and went back inside, leaving me alone in the rain. I stood there, my elegant black dress getting soaked, my carefully applied makeup running down my face, my second broken phone in 6 months scattered on the ground at my feet. And something inside me shifted. A lifetime of trying to please these people, of seeking their approval, of believing that family meant something. All of it, gone, washed away by the rain like chalk on a sidewalk. In its place rose something new, determination, clarity, and yes, a cold, precise desire for justice. I walked to my car, dripping wet but oddly calm. They thought this was over. They thought they'd won. They had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I made 2 important calls. The first was to Mrs. Thompson, Grandma's lawyer. "I need your help," I told her after explaining what had happened after she left. "They're trying to steal my inheritance and cheat me out of my share of the Aspen property." "I'm not surprised." Mrs. Thompson sighed. "Your grandmother warned me this might happen. That's why she insisted on such clear language in her will." "What can I do?" I asked. "Come to my office this afternoon," she said. "We'll file the necessary paperwork to protect your interests. And Emma, bring any evidence you have of past abuse or financial exploitation. It might be relevant." My second call was to Dr. Turner, my therapist. "I need an emergency session," I said. "My family tried to take my inheritance yesterday, and I think I'm finally ready to cut ties completely." "I can see you at 11, she offered. "And Emma, I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself." Those simple words of support meant more than she could know. Over the next few weeks, I put my plan into action. With Mrs. Thompson's help, I secured my inheritance and blocked the unauthorized sale of the Aspen property. I documented every interaction with my family, keeping a detailed record of their attempts to manipulate and coerce me. I also did something I'd been considering for months. I transitioned from teaching to running Cozy Creations full-time. The business had grown steadily over the years, and with Grandma's inheritance as additional capital, I was able to lease a small storefront in a trendy part of Denver and hire 2 part-time employees. My family didn't know about any of this. To them, I had gone silent after the confrontation at the country club. Mom sent occasional texts asking when I was going to stop being difficult and return to the family fold. Michael sent threatening messages about consequences for blocking his access to money. Dad remained silent, as always. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I focused on building my new life, one without their toxicity and manipulation. By August, Cozy Creations had been featured in a popular lifestyle magazine, bringing a surge of new customers. I expanded my product line and hired another employee. I invested wisely, following the advice of a financial advisor recommended by Mrs. Thompson. My net worth grew steadily. Then, in early September, I received an invitation that made my heart race. Ashley's sister was getting engaged, and there would be a celebration at the Crystal Ballroom in the Fairmont Hotel, Chicago, on September 15th. The invitation came from Ashley's mother, who had always been kind to me and perhaps didn't know about the family rift. This was it, the opportunity I had been waiting for. I confirmed my attendance and began making preparations. I bought an elegant designer dress that cost $5,000, more than I would have ever spent on clothing before, but this was an investment in my future freedom. I had my hair and makeup professionally done. I looked successful, confident, powerful. I also prepared a digital presentation, slides containing screenshots of texts, emails, and bank statements, photos of my broken nose after last Christmas, documentation of financial abuse stretching back years, the formal complaint I had filed with Mrs. Thompson about the attempted theft of my inheritance, all of it organized, clear, and undeniable. On September 15th, I arrived at the Crystal Ballroom looking like a different person than the rain-soaked victim who had stood outside the country club 3 months earlier. Heads turned as I entered. Ashley's mother greeted me warmly, complimenting my dress. My cousin Jessica, who had always been friendly but distant, did a double-take. "Emma, is that you? You look amazing." "Thank you," I smiled. "I've been doing well." Michael spotted me across the room, his expression darkening. He whispered something to Ashley, who glanced my way with a frown. Mom and Dad were already seated at a table near the front, pointedly not looking in my direction. The evening progressed with speeches and toasts to the happy couple. I bided my time, waiting for the perfect moment. It came after dinner, when Ashley's father invited guests to share thoughts or well wishes for the engaged couple. I approached the small stage area, my heart pounding but my resolve firm. "I'd like to say a few words," I announced, stepping up to the microphone. The room quieted. I could see Michael tensing, Mom's face paling, Dad shifting uncomfortably in his seat. "For those who don't know me, I'm Emma Johnson," I began. "Sister of Michael, daughter of Linda and Robert." I paused, looking around the room at the gathered faces. Family, friends, business associates, all of them about to learn the truth. "Family is a powerful concept," I continued. "We're taught from childhood that blood ties are sacred, that family comes first, that we should forgive family members no matter what." I saw Mom nodding slightly, probably thinking I was about to apologize and make amends. But what happens when family becomes a weapon? When the people who should love and protect you become your abusers? The room went silent. I could hear the soft hum of the air conditioning, the quiet clink of silverware being set down. 3 months ago, my grandmother left me an inheritance of $25,000 and a share in her Aspen property. My brother and parents tried to take it from me. I gestured to a waiter standing by the wall, who pressed a button on a laptop, the large screen behind me, which had been showing photos of Ashley's sister and her fiancé, now displayed screenshots of texts and emails. "This is a message from my brother, demanding I give him 80% of my inheritance." The screen changed to show another message. "This is from my mother, stating that my grandmother was senile when she wrote her will, despite legal certification to the contrary." Another slide. "This is a bank statement showing the $15,000 I lent my brother for his wedding 3 years ago, money he never repaid or acknowledged." The screen continued to cycle through evidence as I spoke, my voice growing stronger with each revelation. "Last December, my brother broke my nose during an argument over money. When I tried to call for help, my mother took my phone and deliberately destroyed it. My father called me a drama queen and told me to leave." Gasps echoed through the ballroom as photos of my bruised, swollen face appeared on the screen. In March of 2021, my brother pushed me down a flight of stairs because I refused to give him money. My parents witnessed it and blamed me for being clumsy. I looked directly at Michael, who was half standing now, his face contorted with rage. I have spent my entire life being the family scapegoat, the one who gets blamed when things go wrong, the one who is expected to give and give while receiving nothing but abuse in return. I turned to face the room. I'm not sharing this to create drama or ruin a celebration. I'm sharing it because the truth matters. Because abuse thrives in silence. Because I refuse to be a victim any longer. Mom was on her feet now, her face pale. "Emma, stop this immediately!" I ignored her, continuing calmly. 3 months ago, after my family tried to steal my inheritance and broke my second phone in 6 months, I made a decision. I would no longer allow them to hurt me. I would build a life they couldn't touch. The screen behind me changed to show images of my storefront, my products featured in magazines, my financial statements showing a net worth of over $2 million. What my family doesn't know, what they never bothered to ask, is that I've built a successful business. Cozy Creations now has 5 employees, a storefront in Denver, and an online presence that reaches customers nationwide. I saw the shock on their faces. Michael's in particular. He had always believed I was financially dependent, easy to manipulate because I needed their approval. "I am not here seeking revenge," I said, though it wasn't entirely true. "I am here to reclaim my narrative, to tell my truth, and to formally announce that I am cutting ties with those who have abused me." I turned to look directly at my parents and Michael. "I have filed a lawsuit against you for fraud, emotional abuse, and assault. You will be hearing from my attorneys." The room erupted in chaos. Michael lunged toward the stage, only to be restrained by Ashley's brothers. Mom collapsed into her chair, face in her hands. Dad stood frozen, his expression unreadable. I stepped away from the microphone, my heart racing, but my mind calm. As I walked toward the exit, people moved aside, some reaching out to touch my arm in support, others too shocked to react. Ashley's mother caught up with me at the door. "Emma, I had no idea," she said, her eyes wet with tears. "If I had known—" "It's not your fault," I assured her. "But thank you for the invitation. It gave me the closure I needed." Outside, the September night was cool and clear. I took a deep breath of fresh air, feeling lighter than I had in years. My phone buzzed with a text from Jessica. "I believe you. I'm here if you need anything." Then another from Ashley's sister. "I'm so sorry, Emma. Thank you for your courage." And more, from cousins and family friends who had witnessed my revelation. Support, belief, validation. The lawsuit I'd mentioned wasn't a bluff. Mrs. Thompson had helped me prepare it, and it would be filed first thing Monday morning. $500,000 in damages for years of abuse, manipulation, and attempted theft. Michael's financial house of cards would collapse under the scrutiny. My parents' reputation in their social circle would be shattered by the evidence I'd presented. But this wasn't about money or reputation. It was about truth, about standing up and saying, "No more." I got into my car and drove away from the Fairmont Hotel, away from my past, toward the future I was building for myself, a future without their toxicity, a future where I defined my own worth. For the first time in my life, I felt truly free. Hecka. The lawsuit proceeded exactly as Mrs. Thompson had predicted. My family hired expensive lawyers who tried to paint me as mentally unstable, vindictive, attention-seeking, but the evidence was irrefutable. The medical records, the financial paper trail, the witnesses who had seen Michael's violence and my parents' enabling behavior. By December, 1 year after Michael had broken my nose, the judge ruled in my favor. The financial penalty was substantial, though less than I'd asked for, but the real victory was the legal acknowledgement of what I had endured. The court had heard my story and declared, "This was wrong. This was abuse. This victim deserves justice." Michael was forced to sell his house to pay his share of the damages. His business, already teetering on the edge of collapse, finally failed under the weight of legal fees and bad publicity. Ashley filed for divorce shortly after, unable to maintain her influencer lifestyle without Michael's facade of success. My parents' marriage, long a partnership of mutual enabling rather than love, didn't survive the strain. Dad moved out in January, unable to face Mom's bitter recriminations about letting Emma get away with this. They filed for divorce in February. As for me, I expanded Cozy Creations into a second location in early 2024. I moved to a beautiful apartment in downtown Denver with a view of the mountains. I joined a support group for survivors of family abuse, where I met people who understood my journey without explanation. I sold my share of the Aspen property, not because Michael and my parents had wanted me to, but because I wanted no reminders of my former life. I donated a portion of the proceeds to a shelter for victims of domestic violence, in my grandmother's name. Occasionally, I would receive messages from former family members, Aunt Judith expressing regret for not seeing what was happening, Cousin Jessica sharing family news, carefully edited to exclude mentions of my parents or Michael. Mom once sent an email that began with justifications and ended with a half-hearted apology. Too little, too late. I didn't respond to any of them, not out of bitterness, but because I had moved on. The family I had been born into was no longer my family. Instead, I had built a chosen family of friends, colleagues, and fellow survivors who valued and respected me. In therapy, Dr. Turner asked if I had found closure. "Not closure," I replied, after consideration. "That implies an ending. This is more like an opening, the beginning of a life without their shadow hanging over me." "Are you happy?" she asked. I thought about my thriving business, my supportive friends, my freedom from manipulation and gaslighting. "I'm at peace," I said, "and that's better than happiness. It's sustainable." On the anniversary of my confrontation at the Crystal Ballroom, I received a small package. Inside was my grandmother's favorite brooch, a delicate silver butterfly, along with a note from Mrs. Thompson. "Your grandmother wanted you to have this when you found your wings." The note read, "I think that time has come." I pinned the butterfly to my jacket, its silver wings catching the light, a reminder that transformation is possible, that beauty can emerge from confinement, that freedom comes to those brave enough to break away. My name is Emma Johnson. I am not a victim. I am not a scapegoat. I am not defined by the family that failed to love me. I am defined by my courage, my resilience, and my truth. And that is enough.